When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
Before us, the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order.
When we think of Atlantis, most of us think of Plato and his influence on pop culture. However, Plato did not invent the story of Atlantis. Plato simply recounted the story from the writings of an Athenian statesman named Solon, who traveled to Egypt on a diplomatic mission in the early 5th century BC. While Solon was in Egypt, he befriended a high priest named Sanchez, who taught Solon a great deal of Egyptian history, as well as the story of an advanced civilization comprised of 10 cities, which was wiped out in a cataclysmic event. Sanchez explained that the Egyptian dynasties were descendants of survivors of that great cataclysm, and they had settled in the Egyptian region to rebuild that old world civilization. Although Solon and Plato's retelling seems vague, if we trace Sanchez's story back to its origins, we can find a clearer picture of the civilization which Solon dubbed Atlantis. The oldest confirmed civilization, Sumer, existed between 4000 BC and 2000 BC and was situated in modern-day Iraq, otherwise known in the ancient times as the Plains of Shinar. Cities of the Sumerian Empire include Nineveh, Hatra, Assur, Babylon, Eridu, Uruk, and Ur. And there is an interesting collection of tablets that has been found throughout this region, known as the Sumerian Kings List, of which 16 individual copies in varying languages have been found so far. These tablets include details about an advanced civilization that consisted of 10 cities and was wiped out in a great cataclysm. Sound familiar? Where else can we find another story of a great cataclysm and the people who survived it? Almost everybody watching this is familiar with the story of Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark was a massive ship built at God's command that saved Noah, his family, and 2 of every animal from a worldwide cataclysm. After the flood receded, the Ark is said to have rested on Mount Ararat. Recent archaeological surveys to Mount Ararat have uncovered this odd formation there, which is petrified wood and measures to the same dimensions described in the biblical book of Genesis. According to the biblical book of Genesis, Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham had 4 sons, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Mizraim means Egypt, and Cush is the father of Nimrod, the builder of Babylon, which aligns with what Sanchez told Solon, that the Egyptian dynasties were descendants from survivors of that great cataclysm. The Sumerian civilization is often referred to as the cradle of civilization, as it is the oldest civilization to be uncovered. The oldest ruins of this civilization is the Etemenanki, which was a ziggurat in the ancient city of Babylon. It is both the oldest and the largest structure the Sumerians built, and it is located south of Baghdad in Iraq. The Etemenanki is credited for being the biblical story of the Tower of Babel. And if you're unfamiliar with the Tower of Babel story, it is said that as the world began to repopulate after the flood, the people had one language and settled in the plains of Shinar. There they began to build a city where they used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they decided to build a tower to reach the heavens so they couldn't be scattered in another cataclysm. However, God came to see the tower for himself and what they were doing there, and he decided to confuse the language, which took away their ability to communicate, forcing the people to abandon the project. A Sumerian epic in the King's List, titled King of Urk, places the same events at the site of the Etemenanki. The Etemenanki and the Tower of Babel were both implied to be constructed by Nimrod, and can be attributed as the first attempt after the Great Cataclysm to rebuild the civilization we know as Atlantis.
When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
Sir Francis Bacon, who lived between 1561 and 1626, was an English philosopher, statesman, scientist, jurist, and author whose works were greatly inspired by the works of Athenian statesman Solon. Remember Solon? At the time of our favorite Athenian statesman, there were a number of revolutions disputing the traditional aristocracy. During this period of unrest between the rich and poor, Athenians of all classes turned to Solon to act as a mediator between rival factions and reach a mutual satisfactory solution to their problems. Solon attempted to satisfy all sides by dividing the Athenians into 4 classes, with rights and duties pertaining to each class. Solon also formalized a constitution of laws over governmental bodies, and all citizens gained the right to vote and attend the assembly, wherein the assembly's purpose was to pass laws, elect officials, and hear appeals from the courts. Sir Francis Bacon promoted colonization of the New World as a response to the Spanish monarch's quest for land, and was also driven by the dissatisfaction with kings, nobility, taxation without representation, and religious intolerance. Bacon's novel, The New Atlantis, is a vision of a utopian society where scientific progress lies at the very foundation of the society, and it is the archetype of Bacon's vision for a better future in the New World. The works of Sir Francis Bacon were admired by Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and George Washington. Freemasonry is the leading fraternal organization in the world. Its origins are lost in the unrecorded history of medieval times, but it formally organized in London, England in 1717. The first U.S. president, George Washington, was initiated into the secret society in 1752 at the lodge in Fredericksburg, Virginia. On August 4th, 1753, Washington was raised to a Master Mason, the highest degree in Freemasonry. During the Revolutionary War, Washington participated in rituals in temporary military lodges set up to accommodate the Freemason officers and soldiers in the Continental Army. And in these lodges, he initiated many of his fellow officers into the secret society. Benjamin Franklin was perhaps the most influential Freemason of the New World. According to Masonic tradition, Franklin laid the cornerstone of Independence Hall in 1734. In 1776, Franklin traveled to France to negotiate a treaty. Franklin affiliated with a French lodge called the Nine Sisters. While in France, he assisted in the initiation of Voltaire. He used these connections to facilitate the relationship between America and France, and as a printer, he was able to print many Masonic documents and constitutions. There were many other Freemasons involved with the founding of the United States. Paul Revere and Baron von Steuben were both members of this society, as were 33 officers in the Continental Army, 9 signers of the Declaration of Independence, and 13 signers of the U.S. Constitution. The District of Columbia's exact location was chosen by George Washington, who commissioned Pierre Charles L'Enfant to design the city. L'Enfant was a Frenchman who came to America to fight against the British in the Revolutionary War and became George Washington's trusted confidant. L'Enfant was a Freemason initiated into the Holland Lodge No. 8 in New York City, 1789. In 1790, L'Enfant was commissioned by George Washington to design the new nation's capital city, and on April 15, 1791, the Alexandria Lodge No. 22 laid the cornerstone for the capital city of the first democracy the world would have seen since the Solonian Reform. What you believe and what you don't is entirely up to you, but if you look back on history, you'll see exactly what's true. The idea of a new world order is nothing new at all. A new world order is the ancient hope which goes back to the dawn of civilization. From the Etemenanki to Washington D.C., the empires throughout history have been acting on that ancient hope to restore that old world empire and declare for themselves a new world order.